Good evening. This is November 3rd, Swarthmore Borough Council work session. My name is Scarlett McCahill. I'm Council Vice President, and I'm standing in for President Jill Gajewski, who is out of the area today. Quick roll call. Mr. Boonen.
Here.
Ms. Garland.
Here.
Ms. McLeod. Here. Mr. Spiegel.
Here.
Mr. Scott.
Here.
Mr. Halbum.
Here.
Okay, and so we won't have Jill or Jared or Kristen tonight. And at the conclusion of tonight's meeting, council will move into executive session to discuss a personnel matter. We will not return to public session afterward this evening. So let's start with public comment. Kindly come to the microphone, share your name, your address, and your remarks in 3 minutes or so. Is there anyone for public comment this evening? Hi, Sean, come on up.
Good evening, and I'm Sean Eyring, and I live at 316 South Chester Road, and I'm here as a resident to express my strong support for creating and funding a borough-led business development group, one that promotes economic growth, sustains and nurtures our local businesses, and provides consistent professional coordination among the organizations working to keep our town center vibrant. A key part of this initiative must be a dedicated borough staff member who serves as a direct link between the borough manager, borough council, and our business community. This role is essential to ensure that priorities, ideas, and information flow effectively in both directions, building trust, accountability, and responsiveness. Our merchants, Swarthmore Town Center, and many community partners have worked tirelessly to promote Swarthmore's vitality. But much of that progress still depends on part-time effort and volunteer energy. That model has taken us far, yet we've reached a point where focused professional coordination is essential for moving forward. With a clear framework, like the Main Street approach that we've been talking about for the last couple of years, which unites economic vitality, organization, promotion, and design under one coordinated vision, we can strengthen borough leadership and ensure our local businesses have the consistent strategic support they need to thrive. Nearby communities like Media, Ardmore, and Lansdowne show what's possible when towns invest in this kind of structure. Swarthmore may be smaller, but our needs are no less real. We depend on a healthy downtown, economically, culturally, and socially, to sustain the character and strength of our borough. Funding this position is not just an expense, it's an investment in Swarthmore's future, in a thriving and resilient town center, and in the connected community that we all want to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sean. Could you kindly repeat your address if you said it at the top?
Yeah, 316 South Chester Road.
Thank you. Next for public comment. Steve, hi there.
Let me get my timer set up so I don't overrun it.
All good. Take your time.
Steve Platt, 21 Oberlin Ave. I have a few comments or thoughts actually on the fabled Cunningham Field situation. I wanted to express them and get them onto the table. This is done by not in-depth reading of all the documents that are out there, rather by reading various articles, various items, skimming and so on. First item is balance. I've read a lot about the things about all the gains the college will be making. I have not seen a balance on what the borough will be obtaining from this. I haven't seen a balance as far as the community as a whole, and especially of the local inhabitants who stand to lose the most in terms of their lifestyle. I'd like to see a wider description of this and a legitimate discussion of how we are going to be obtaining this and how the borough will be balancing this, what it will be losing. Second item is the MOU, which is actually, at this point, it's a ballpark, it's a placeholder for the vehicle to get this done. I've heard agreements and MOU variances and so on. They're easy to forget. They're difficult to write. And one question I have is I've been reading the structure of the MOU and what's going to be implemented. I don't know if there are any enforcement clauses in the MOU. I do not know if there are any defensible, defined and measurable metrics that are going to be used, put into place, and required as far as maintaining this. And I'd like to see mitigation clauses as part of the MOU. What happens if these are not met? I'd like to see how the data is going to be stored and be made available to the general public. And this may be done by defining measurement and evaluation processes, establishing baselines, defining a measurement schedule, publication of all results, and definition of all mitigation strategies, which may include shutdown of the lighting and sound systems if they are found to be exceeding desired goals, or desired standards. Third item is the demonstration of the operation. We've been talking about Clothier Field and how that is too loud, too bright, and so on. I would like to see the college tear down its lighting and sound system for that and establish and install a lighting system and sound system similar to what they're proposing for Cunningham Field and demonstrate that it works before Cunningham Field is started. I think this would be appropriate, and it would also serve to mitigate any issues that nearby residents of Clothier Field happen to have. This would include performance and including definition and creation of the performance and measurements and reporting. The last item is for the borough. I haven't gone too in depth to our current website. I was not a great fan of the current website, or the previous website, excuse me. I would like to see areas established for ordinances, MOUs, waivers, and data reports that are readily searchable. We get a search engine placed on top of that so I can request it, so that items are not lost. If they're being buried by catalog, by meeting, by time, and so on, it is impossible to find an ordinance. If I had a waiver placed at a particular point, or I could say, give me all the information on Clothier Field, and it establishes that and provides it provides a greater exposure, greater visibility to the community as a whole for monitoring and viewing the situation regarding Cunningham Field and other current projects. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Steve. Next for public comment. No, Robin.
Okay, Robin Schaffler, 21 Oberlin Avenue, you know me. So nice to see all of you here. My comment is on Cunningham Field. I have many, many thoughts about Cunningham Field, so I'm just going to talk about my top line item, which is the artificial turf. We're talking about 4 acres of plastic carpet on top of plastic padding. Thousands of sneaker and cleat-shod feet pounding on all this plastic. It's going to shed micro and nanoplastics. Now, some scientists are now starting to consider these substances to be Earth's major #1 contaminant problem because they're impossible to clean up, they never degrade, they cause cancer, they interrupt endocrine function, including reproduction. So I beg of you to immediately develop a concrete plan to test the water quality to establish a baseline. And let me also remind you that Swarthmore is subject to MS4, which covers stormwater runoff quality as well as volume. In parallel, I urge you to develop an ordinance that would require regular routine testing, establish thresholds for all known chemicals, establish a schedule for review of standards updates to update the tests and thresholds, require mitigation if something exceeds the threshold, and delineate specific roles and responsibilities that, first of all, do not put the fox in charge of the hen house, and second of all, require the polluter to pay all mitigation costs. Thank you for your time and attention. I have other things to say. I'll do that in an email. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Next for public comment. All right, well, this is the work session, so we'll have public comment again at the end. But if there's nobody else, we'll close public comment for now, and we'll move into tonight's agenda. So, quickly, under the President's section, please consider making a donation or accessing free food collected during the county-wide food drive. This is taking place this Saturday at Cardinal O'Hara High School from 9 to 12. And this is organized by Delaware County Council and Department of Human Services. So more information is at delcopa.org. But really this is a solicitation for food donations locally that will support Delaware County food pantries and 77,000 residents in and around Delco who rely on SNAP assistance. So that's this Saturday at Cardinal Ave. Moving into approval of minutes. Let's start with October 6 minutes. Hi, Sean.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure all four members of council here were present for the October 6th and October 14th council meetings so that we have a eligible quorum.
I see 1, 2, 3, 4. We were a full house that night. Sound okay to you?
All right.
Yeah. According to these well-prepared minutes. Thank you, Elise. In absence, right? Any changes to the October 6th meeting minutes?
I move they be approved.
Thank you, Cindy. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jana. Last call. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you much. One down. How about October 14th? Those minutes. And did folks have a look at that? Did folks have a look at that one? I didn't see anything. No?
Look good to me.
Okay, Jana, could we call that a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Cindy. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you much. Hi, David. What you got for us?
Environment. Let's see, the EAC met, the Environment Committee nor the Tree Committee met in whatever last month was, October. EAC is working on a whole bunch of initiatives that you should be aware of. They're looking at something they call a green wagon program, where they will place at least one wagon somewhere in town to be determined, hopefully one of our parks, with a seedling exchange. So you can take and leave native plants for people to use and share. As you saw as you walked in, they're also been involved with the campaign sign collection. Everybody remember to vote tomorrow if you haven't already. But at the end of the campaign season, we've been collecting signs, and the signs are up. The signs are on our bulletin board, on our website again. Thank you, Elise. And the collection day is, where is my cheat sheet on that? Is it this weekend? Does anybody have that? Here it is. It is through November 7th at our recycling center, and then we will have them magically disappear and take into the appropriate recycling centers.
So that's by this, inclusive this Friday, the 7th.
Right.
Okay.
Couple of other matters. The BAC's looking at what position it wants to recommend on LNG sites in Delco along the river. Probably not Chester anymore, but neighboring communities. And they will probably be getting back to us with a recommendation. I suggested to them that they check in with the local communities down there so that we're all pulling in the same direction. They're also looking at efforts in our county and in neighboring counties on leaf blower restrictions, and we'll see what comes up from there. I think media has one in the wings right now where it would only allow leaf blowers during certain months of the year. Again, this is not an all-inclusive list, but they're also looking into zero waste. They support the recommendation of the Public Works on having a food scraps initiative that we'll discuss later on. And they're also arranging for visits to a visit to our local recycling center. We all hear about it, and sometimes it's good to have kick the tires a little bit. So you all received emails. Let them know. I told them if they had more than four or more of us, it raises the price of poker, that it has to be advertised, all that type of thing. I know Jared and I both expressed interest in going. It's not limited, but we have to jump through the right hoops. So if you're interested, fill in the right forms that you've already gotten. The meetings will be for the EAC is scheduled the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, none in December. Moving on to the tree committee. The tree committee is trying to get the first batch of Pico replacement trees planted. And we're working with the borough manager and trying to get out mailings and or emails to the 20 some odd households that will be in the first batch of approximately 40 trees. Time is short, so hopefully we'll be able to pull this off. But that's where we are. It doesn't require any committee action. They would be, I've asked them to supply me with an alternative date because their date would be, I think, Thanksgiving in November. So
Great.
I'll get back to you.
Thanks, David. Hi, Cindy. You've got lots for us this evening for finance. Please take it away.
Yes, our committee met October 27th. It was a relatively long meeting. We went through the budget line by line. And Sean followed up, researching a couple of things, actually more than a couple, and making the adjustments that the majority had requested. So that's the latest budget you all have in your inboxes. Some highlights. It's on the whole, I think, good news. It shows that we have a surplus, which is kind of a bad word, you know. Anyway, we have more revenues than anticipated expenditures of almost $100,000. We forecasted property taxes increased by what some would say is conservative, others would say is reasonable, by $80,000 because of 110 Park, which looks like it is rolling along to closing on some units, right, Sean?
Yes, we've had, I believe, 5 UNO use and occupancy permits that have been issued following the township, the borough engineer's inspection of the property.
So that'll be this year. Well, property taxes will be next year. The next item that I was going to mention is the real estate transfer tax. We increased that by, I think, $35,000. So that we have a total of $150,000. These numbers make sense if you're looking at the budget. It's sort of hard and abstract for you all, but I think we'll get it posted sometime. Again, some might think that's conservative, others think that it's reasonable, because we don't want to build a house of cards here. We want something that is literally going to be in the bank for us. Cable franchise fees declined. That's not a huge amount. That's just a fact of life. General government, $25,000 was added to the personnel line for a new position or a partial position for business development. That's the fact. Capital transfer of $250,000 to go to, at this point, we are saying for emergency reserve for capital, well, for emergency services. Yeah. Again, that's a point to be discussed. We confirmed that the $8,000 budgeted for the Welcome to Swarthmore mural is included in the budget. Sean did research and found that we have paid for most of Henderson Field. We will have paid for it this year. So we are putting in matching grant funds for the Arley project for the light at the college in Chester. Municipal pension obligation is kind of a biggie because of how we had put numbers in before, and also what happened with our obligation for this year. The people who were responsible for that described it as a perfect storm of how we changed our accounting procedures and two other factors. Anyway, there's no argument that we just have to pay it. And some would even say we need to prioritize paying it above other bills. So that's another possible discussion for full council about our order of payment, our order of obligation. I know you've been researching why the fire protection hydrant rental almost doubled. And you have it in there as the number for 2025. I'm thinking we might actually want to plug in the number for 2026. If they've raised the rates and that's the reason, we're going to have to pay them. Unless you know now.
Yeah, barring, and I'm still waiting to hear back from Aqua. Public Works and the fire department did not have any information explaining that. So once I hear back from Aqua, hopefully we will get a
real
justification and a good estimate for 2026. But yes, it may be wise to increase that by about $14,000 to match the 2025 true cost.
Yeah. Thank you for increasing the anticipated electricity bills and allocating it properly for supply and distribution. Town center maintenance has increased. It just has increased. I don't know if it's overtime or more part-time workers, but 16,000 is the increase. Sewer and waste will be even in and out, whatever that number ends up being. Let's see, bigger things. Contributions to groups. In this round, we agreed to provide the library $32,000. They had requested $40,000. That's something we can discuss.
That's an increase of 30,000 and 40,000, right?
An increase, we provided an additional 32,000, yeah, but they had requested 40,000. Thank you for clarifying that. We voted unanimously to recommend that Borough Council authorize engaging Transcend Financial Services for finance and budgetary processes consulting in an amount not to exceed $11,500.
Is that the organization, Sean, you were talking about?
Yes.
Yes, and that will be a 2025 expenditure as well.
So I could pause here and make that motion. It's later on.
Cindy, what I'd like, you're giving us this really good outline of places to get on the board and get into a more fulsome discussion. What I'd like is for us to have any deliberation that we need on any of these interior decision points tonight. And then barring an insight, Sean, that you bring to us or something that folks who are absent tonight want to raise next week, we'll go back through the same interior decision list next week and call the question. Does that work for folks? Okay, so Cindy, I hear you, I think, and you all supplement. I hear you identifying that we should have a discussion to verify our assumptions on property tax, then discuss the capital transfer for emergency services, pension obligation.
I don't think there's anything to discuss on pension.
Okay, you said something about, do we want to fund this over top something else?
That's a
Okay.
separate thing.
Okay.
Thanks.
Are those okay with not talking about pension obligation? Yeah, I agree with you. Here it is, aptly named as an obligation. So, okay, street lighting, Sean, you took care of. Hydrant rental, no extra information. Seems to me like solid waste, we're gonna leave with, today closer to some direction, so let's not talk about that inside the budget, but let's talk about the library funding. Let's talk, like you said, let's do Transcend Financial Services tonight, but it doesn't need to be into 26 conversation. So then, I mean, to me, the big enchilada is emergency services tax, property tax, right? So,
Right.
okay. Are there others that people want to add for tonight and or for next week that they didn't hear me just rattle off? This was, Cindy and I are both speaking from Sean's budget update outline on the 28th, in case that's
Well, and
useful.
I would like to say that the committee voted to recommend this budget
Mhm,
to full council.
mhm. So that's our starting point.
Yes.
Yes.
The only thing that I wanted to add, more just a clarification. For the business development position, there was one place where it said 25K and another place where it said 30K.
Oh, we need to track that down then. It may have gone to 30 by the time we thought about possibilities,
Yes,
because,
thank you.
Right, I believe you're correct that, but I think it is at 30K
Yeah.
in the budget with a $100,000 surplus.
yeah, because things were updating at various different times. Thank you, though. And we can discuss, funding all the community groups at what they requested as well. That it's not just the library that's up for discussion.
Thanks for that clarification. Okay.
But you funded all of the groups what they asked.
We didn't.
Okay, so then let's go through that in more detail. Okay, so are we on board when we think I hear a basket on expense side, a basket on revenue side? How do folks want to tackle that? Want to talk about the tax issue first, or get to that at the end when we have, move expense side, then revenue side, and then how we would want to fill any shortfall?
Let's start with the expenses.
Okay, okay. So the first expense, basket of expenses, Janet, this comes back to personnel and business development position. So Sean, there's not a personnel tab on this budget, right? It's just this top level
They're different
expense.
tabs. They're all
Yeah,
tabs.
there's multiple different tabs. This one would be found under admin salaries, and I just checked, and yes, it is in there for 30, not 25,000.
Okay. And, Janet, do you object?
No.
Good. So, David?
But we did have a conversation around this concept, and we said in committee, and correct me, Madam Chairman, if you think I have this wrong, was that we wanted to put in the extra funds, but we weren't necessarily committing it to a part-time position, that it may be more appropriate to combine it with another part-time position that we have and have a full-time position that one of the duties or one of the places where Sean is allocating resources. Sean might want to be the czar of business development. I don't want to prejudge that. But that it's more that the resources are there rather than a particular job and a particular title and a particular job description, et cetera.
Sure.
So I would say that's fair.
Okay.
And we don't know what next year is going to bring. And we haven't written the job description. The duties may align, they may not. So, but this allows us the possibility to move forward with this idea that a lot of people support.
Yeah, I'd also add that Jana and I are in discussions with a consultant through the Delaware Valley Insurance Trust. As part of our membership to that trust, we get 4 hours of free consulting every year. And one of the projects they had discussed was meeting with Jana and I to basically craft a job description for that may be combined with an existing position that could become vacant in 2026. So I'm in the process of calling around to other municipalities. I had a very good conversation with Brittany at Media Borough today about their nonprofit arm over there who takes care of business development, and we're hoping that culminates into us having a job description and list of duties.
Okay. So is anyone looking for a more tactical, detailed understanding of where this $30,000 is going for now? Or are we saying we're still forming that whether it's a part of a full-time position or it's a standalone part-time position or seasonal position, lots of flexibility, we're okay with that level of guidance at this time? Okay.
Yes.
Great, great. Okay, so then, Next on the list, capital transfer for emergency services. So Cindy, can you give us a little color, or Sean, if people feel the need? I feel like this is a horse we've been beating for a while, so I have a good understanding of what this is. But would anyone like a recap?
I'd like a recap, because if you have a good understanding, that's more than I have, really.
Sure. Okay.
We have some opportunities with this budget, from increased property taxes and transfer taxes, and a contribution from the college. The college understands that we are in uncharted territories with our emergency services. They rely on the borough for police, fire, and ambulance. And so they have stepped up, and they understand that we've done our best to project the amount. They understand that that we have an idea of putting $250,000 toward emergency services reserves, because they don't want us coming back to them and saying, oh, we needed more. And so this is a way to ensure that the funds are there for those purposes. And we will be able to use them for those purposes. Maybe not in 26, maybe in 27, maybe in 28.
Yeah, I would also add, Kristen and I attended the DCED Teams meeting earlier this week with our, I think they're called peer review specialists from DCED. And one of the things he was driving home was that, you know, historically speaking, when communities create an ALS authority, whatever they budget usually winds up not quite being enough. There's always sort of unexpected or unanticipated costs or cost overruns in these types of projects. And that, you know, when you're sort of going into uncharted waters, it's best to take a life raft. Regardless of whether or not, you know, the financial forecasts for the costs are enough, we do know that there will be, you know, capital expenditures in the past for this authority, and, you know, they're starting from zero. So, you know, I think it's prudent to have something in savings to apply to that rainy day, especially given the importance of this service, and also the member communities of this ALS authority are talking about how we can financially disincentivize anybody from leaving the organization once it's formed, which may mean either capital contributions or in-kind contributions for those communities that have ambulances or other apparatus that they can donate.
And are the other participating communities also making capital transfers or in-kind donations in 2026?
I don't know. This was just discussed earlier this week, so they may be contemplating that, but I'll have to reach out to them and see what their plans are.
And Sean, this emergency services reserves is not just for ambulance, right?
That's correct. It could be applied to fire, to police,
Oh.
and we do know, based on the report we got back from the consultant, that our fire apparatus is at or beyond its expected life use. The borough is also contemplating a combination of Garden City and Swarthmore fire departments. Were that to happen, Garden City also has apparatus at or beyond its lifespan. So we're looking at, you know, multi-millions of dollars in terms of, you know, truck replacements or continuing with higher than historically budgeted repairs for those vehicles.
So David, I need a contrasting view on this.
Yes.
Anyone else want to give the context, Marty, anything else on
Just
the real life?
this is an issue that's been coming down the road for a while. We know it's not going to go away. Fire department is not going to get less expensive to run. So I think it is short-sighted for us not to anticipate. and do what is necessary to make sure that we're at least somewhat fiscally able to, and sustaining to the services that we currently have. So I would urge you to be cautious in how you approach this.
Thanks for that. Okay, and David, I know you've been thinking about how can we be resourceful within this budget to make sure that we have sufficient resources for our needs next year and beyond. And you want to take a different approach on this?
Yes. Well, as we're starting with a budget with $100,000 surplus. Okay. And that's built on many different things. One of the things it's built on is the EST, which is on the revenue side, of about $322,000, and this $250,000 reserve. So it's contributing a big part of that surplus, those two numbers, if you look at them. Without getting into all the granular issues of why I think that we should expect even more than that $100,000 surplus in reality. I want to focus just on the, first on this emergency services fund and the concept of having a separate line item in the budget for EST. We used to have separate line items in our budget. Scarlett, you and I long enough longevity to remember, oh, there's a millage charge for this and a millage charge for that. And after some careful consideration, we said, let's roll them all into one. It gives us more flexibility. All right. So whether it's as a millage, separate millage charge or on its own, 5 mils, right, half of a mill, I'm sorry, is equivalent to about 12.5% of our current tax. So it's a significant bump in taxes, and I'm stingy when it comes to those matters. When it comes down to this line item, this emergency services reserve, it's not going to new equipment. New equipment will almost certainly be funded by some sort of a special bond offering for this type of equipment that has very attractive rates, interest rates. It's not going to be the use of this. So let's take that away. We have made conservative adjustments so that the Fire Association budget reflects the loss of BLS revenues and costs. So there's already some money in that pot as we move forward. Because there is a big increase of what we're going to be giving to the Fire Association, separate and apart. And then when we get down just to the ALS in this budget has an impact of around $71,000 subject to check. That's the net effect of revenues and expenses for ALS services. Our share, as presented to us at a joint meeting of the Public Safety and Finance Committees. So not changing any of the base numbers. And I said, all right, if fire's already taken care of, and we've always taken good care of police, and equipment isn't the deal, then it really is ALS that we're looking at. Why do we need a $250,000 reserve for a $71,000 net expense? I'm open to some sort of a contingency fund for ALS. It is our first venture into this. Also, when you go forward, again, another reason not to have this as a dedicated resource or a constricted resource, is that we keep hearing that this time next year, hopefully, ALS, maybe BLS, maybe fire will all be under a separate freestanding tax authority. Well, you have this bucket of money here,
Sure.
and then you've got another tax authority over there. How do they commingle or not commingle? So I'm just saying, yes, let's think ahead, let's be prudent, and if we need something specifically for an ALS reserve, let's make it reflective of the ALS cost and not 3.5 times its size. And when we do that, it would eliminate, in my view, the need for the EST.
Understood. Okay, thanks for that. Thanks for that context. So Sean, if you were functioning as the administrator without the EST reserve restricted fund, what's your response or kind of reaction to hearing, like, let's pull this in closer to our projection with to the new costs, or having general fund versus restricted funds? Some of the ideas that David's sharing.
So my concern is that right now, the ALS authority members are discussing an authority model where the municipalities would be billed directly. It is certainly an option that when the authority is formed, they could take on a model where they tax residents directly, but right now that doesn't seem to be the leading method. So again, once we're part of an ALS authority, we'll be, depending on how the bylaws are written, one vote of 4, 5, or 6 communities. So if there is a year where the authority needs to hire more or, create or purchase more, we will have to contribute. I always prefer to have money in reserve as opposed to taking out loans to cover those costs. But I mean, it's not to say we couldn't take out loans, but again, that's creating debt service to pay for ongoing service.
Can I ask you to say that in a different way? So whether we're modeling for having $71,000 or $250,000 or some other figure for the new costs in 2026 for ALS, if we were short, what would be your recommendation mid-year next year?
We'd have to draw from reserves, and our reserves are basically right at what the Government Finance Officers Association recommends for, a minimum reserve of 15% of your general operating budget.
And is there any basis to make a speculative thought that says it would be at what time of the year when we would discover, like, 3/4 of the way through the year, end of year? I would imagine certainly not beginning of the year. Is that fair?
It's hard to anticipate that without having any ALS service to look at. Right now, we don't know what the billing reimbursement time will be from insurance companies, Medicare, Medicaid. We know there will be a delay just because of the administrative process. But it remains to be seen whether we're going to realize most of those reimbursements on a monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, or annual basis. But if the plan moves forward as it's being discussed right now, it'll be the boroughs and other municipalities being billed for those services, less what they're being reimbursed.
But we're saying here, separate from this capital contribution under discussion, $850,000 for the general operating. So we're not short in 2026 until we've spent that money. So that's my, not being on either of these committees, I'm like, it's not gonna happen in the first part of the year, there's no realistic understanding when that would be, but maybe come fall or come winter, which we've seen in past years, where we've had our existing fire company come and ask for a Q4 additional infusion. So, to me, I wonder, So kind of back to the question, so I hear you saying you want to have resources available in case we exceed our projected costs. And I don't hear you saying anything that lands to me as, and this could happen right away. And then we don't have, and then we're far away from, not that we can't, make changes mid-year, but to me, it seems like this would be a fall or winter of '26 potential problem, in which case we're close to the budget, or we could defer bonding for new equipment until the next year, anything like that. So just challenge that thinking. If anyone here thinks, no, Scarlett, that's not a sensible way to think about this.
Well, my biggest concern is that once the ALS authority is up and running, the costs will be immediate through the contribution, but.
And we should assume the reimbursement will be incomplete and slow.
Correct.
Right.
And it's entirely possible that, the numbers that we have forecasting all of that do not accurately reflect the timeline it will take to receive that reimbursement, which means we would be dipping into our reserve or our pockets for those funds.
And I'd like to just note that anything that has just been discussed here has no bearing on whether it should be an EST
I was gonna say, let's go there
or
next. Yeah.
a increase in our millage. And by the way, one of the things that we discussed in the Finance Committee that we just took what was given at this time from, was we said, there's nothing magic about the 0.5 number. It could be some other number if in the course of discussion we thought that was a more reasonable number. But those funds, whether they're an EST or the regular property tax, come in at the same time from the same people into the same budget. They just get put into different pots if they're two separate line items.
So are folks okay with shifting now to, okay, so nothing else on 71, 250, or
I did have one
broad another
question.
number? Shoot.
Where, and I think I asked, and refresh my memory, Cindy, where did the 250 come from? Was that based on discussions with Sean and some advisors?
So when we were meeting with the college, the first couple drafts of the MOU stipulated that if the entire $638,000 that the college was putting forward wasn't spent, that they would get some of that money back. The idea of having, and that also contemplated the borough having an EST that would bring in a revenue of roughly $322,000. The idea of having the capital transfer of $250,000 immediately was to ensure that both parties, the college and the borough, agreed that some of this money is designated for savings for the purposes of not coming back to the college year after year, so that if the stars align and ALS service costs less than we were forecasting, the college wasn't getting all of their money back and leaving the borough's money spent first. So, no matter what happens, this 250 would be there for future years to draw upon if, we needed it.
But none of that is in the final MOU. None of that.
So we're not bound to that.
Right.
But that's the answer to your question.
Right.
Was that was the model that was part of the dialogue to negotiate the college contribution.
And by the way, the 322 will be a little bit higher because it doesn't include 110 Park. Somebody asked, what are other boroughs doing? I read a little blurb in this week's Swarthmore about Nether Providence, and they're not making major changes in their work. At this time, the Swarthmore was not reporting that they were making major changes to cover these costs.
Sure. Okay.
I'd just like to go back to that this emergency services pot is not just for ALS. And I am seriously worried about the fire department condition. I don't know that we'll get sufficient grants,
Sure.
but it may pay for some of it, but it's not gonna pay for all of it. And expenses to repair these things really are ballooning.
Sure.
On the other hand, I would be open to discussion of a lesser EST, maybe
Sure.
not 0.5.
And Cindy, do you mind if you just gave us a really nice segue into, if we need to raise more money through taxation in 2026, do you have a pro and con kind of short analysis of the benefits to EST restricted money versus property tax increase that can be used for all the purposes you listed and any others?
I don't have really strong feelings. I think it's easier for the public to understand an EST
Sure,
because of the changes in the hospital situation.
sure, sure, which really is the
The driver.
driver, okay.
So,
how
and
about
if that
others?
gets us to the same place, that's,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Other folks? Sean, does it make a radical difference to your ability to use these tools next year?
No, I mean, if your question is, you know, the difference between a 0.5 millage increase in property taxes versus EST, I think Cindy hit the nail on the head. It just fund restricts that money for use by ALS, police, or fire, whereas a 0.5 millage increase in property tax could be spent on any fund.
And we can do a 0.4 or a 0.3 for either label.
That's correct. 0.5 is just the current statutory limit for an emergency services tax.
Minimum.
Or, excuse me, maximum.
Oh,
Thank you.
maximum, okay, okay. So, not being on, again, I hope that my naivete can be a little useful here. Not being on either committee, it seems to me like I would prefer the flexibility of the general fund. I agree that the reality is we're only in this conversation or in this entire project, right? Because of this big Crozier change. So, does anyone else have a contrasting view? I think one or the other is way better than the other?
It's not a hill that I would die on, but your argument about, like, frankly, the optics and the fact that, you know, this happened, so we need to respond, does make sense to me. But what David said about David and Scarlett being on council years ago, where you had your hands tied because different villages went to different funds, that you tried to change that, so here we are.
But I think it would serve as sort of a reminder to ourselves that we're not trying to grow government here to, you know, we're not trying to raise taxes just to have more.
Yeah.
Except for maybe the business development, which theoretically would pay for itself. That's the whole idea.
Okay.
Also to the flexibility standpoint, I mean, our current contribution to the fire department is significantly more than $322,000. So if the increase was EST, and we were overfunded, for lack of a better term, in that line item, there's still plenty of general fund money that could be drawn back from that and applied to other funds. But I mean, this is a classic 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the
Sure,
other type
sure.
of scenario.
So how about for next week, and then I'm going to move us on from this topic for tonight. How about for next week, we break apart this capital contribution question into the total amount that we're seeking to raise and the structure, right, EST versus property tax. Is that helpful, folks?
That's fine. To me, it also ties into how all the expenses settle out. We went from a -13 to a +30, and now it's up to 100. So as we keep adjusting, you know, then my thinking about taxes also adjusts.
Fair.
Right, and I've gone through the same process. I mean, we started at a not a negative 13, but a negative 1 point something
Well,
billion.
that was, I didn't go back that far.
Right. But we have worked on this, all of us, and, said, oh, what wasn't included, what still needs to be included. And we're at a we're at a surplus, a budgetary, surplus based upon what Sean has submitted, with some changes still to be made. I mean, as far as I know, Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, we haven't gotten the updated assessment from Delco, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I know we have a number of placeholders.
Yeah, I don't know if we're expecting one this year, but yeah, if they provided a new assessment, that would certainly change our forecasted tax revenue up and down.
Right.
Barb, do you know if we're expecting? an
You should
assessment
get one
this
every year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in this month.
Sometime in November.
Yeah,
And
this
it's
month.
usually this week in between the two meetings that we get it, so you
Yeah.
might have to
Yeah.
give them a little bit of a nudge on that, and clarify whether there's anything in there for 110 Park, because we don't want to double count.
Sure, sure. And David, I want to move us down to the next topic, which I
Sure.
believe is contributions to community groups.
I was gonna say expenses, yeah.
Yep, so we're still on, okay, so here, expense side. Folks want to be in tab 2, if they have the budget pulled up in front of them. Down at the bottom of that expenditures tab, you can see the 25 to 26 comparison. So just to summarize briefly, Swarthmore Public Library, 13.5% increase from 236.
I think the percentages don't really tell you as much because the funded amounts are so different.
Sure.
This year, we're giving, the borough supports the library to the tune of $236,653. They asked for 40,000 more, so that they could pay somebody a decent wage and also.
Yeah, a decent wage, well, going from the librarian at 33,000 to 40,000, so 40,000.
Maybe not even still a decent wage.
Team programming and expanded hours, part-time staff raises, some COLA, cost of living adjustments, pension matching, and then $4,000 in just fixed costs. And I know that we're only giving them 32,000 when they asked for 40,200 on top of the other items that they asked for. So considering the conversation we just had about having a surplus and how we've done a lot of work and we've gotten to a good place, I would say that, could we consider funding them the additional 8,000, because it does feel like it could change, it could change the library.
I'm open to that.
Okay.
Okay. So.
Do you want to make that, well,
Okay.
this is a discussion.
We're listing out what our edits would be for next week. So, so 32 versus 40, let's put it on the, tab for
right.
next week. Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Is that fine, Sean?
That's fine.
Sufficient, and,
Well, I mean-
kind of highlighting the cell for now, and you'll prompt us to come back to
Council
it.
hasn't voted on any of these.
Right.
So this is just a summary of what Finance Committee had recommended. So if here, can we recommend a new number, just for council to think of, so we don't have to,
Yep.
we can just say,
We
we
want to see
updated the
40.
number and it's open to discussion for full council.
Mhm.
Well, I don't know if we can
I don't know.
change the recommendation,
It's not changing the recommendation,
Right.
it's saying, what do we want to vote on next week?
Oh, I think we,
So if we want to vote in 40 instead of 32 as the assumption and still be able to tie it all down, I think, Sean, for you to be ready for us next week. I don't think every decision needs to be an interior vote unless one of you shakes your head no, right? But some of them we may need to, right? Because we may need
Yeah,
to call the
if
question
you're
to
in
one another.
disagreement, you're gonna
That's
have
right.
to, you're gonna have
Yeah,
to-
we'll vote it out.
Right.
And it's all good. Okay, great. So thanks for that one. Cindy,
So on my
SRA,
recreation-
Town Center, and
Recreation Association, I
seniors.
think, did we give them everything they asked for?
That's not under me,
Oh, shoot.
sorry.
I think so,
I
but
think so too.
that's Public Works. Do you have a recollection? 15K instead of 10K for SRA?
Yes, they've been at this 10K for
For a few years.
For years, and they came to us, actually, they were at more than that, and then they reduced it for a number of
But
years.
they didn't ask for any more, is the point.
Well,
This-
they've asked to go from 10 to 15, I
So-
thought.
Right, and we said, good.
And we said,
And Town Center, they actually got a decrease request. Senior Citizens, we did not give an increase. I think they asked for 27.5.
27.5.
So I would be willing to bump them up. I mean,
Now that you see.
now that we
some of the
see
voting
where
was
we
there.
are, I mean, we were really being Mr. Grinch because we were so
Sure.
far in the hole that,
Sure, understood.
And PAC also asked, they asked for 30, where it sounds like you had, out of committee, just gave them status quo at 20.
we did.
I would throw on the table somewhere in between, 20, so give them 25, because if you remember in committee, because the three of us are in that committee, you know, they talked about some of their new initiatives, like mock trials for teens and Model UN and additional successful family events. Also, I did talk to Rosemary after the fact, the executive director of PAC, where she mentioned, you know, they want to have expanded hours and weekend hours, but they need someone to staff PAC and to be there for kids if there's, or adults, if there are issues on site. And it's really hard to find people at minimum wage that to take evening hours and weekend hours. And so in order to find somebody that was appropriate and dependable, she was hoping to increase that hourly wage a bit so that she could find somebody that, again,
So would this be free programming? The sticking point for me is that they charge for their programs. There are a lot of participants who don't live in Swarthmore. And so I was more inclined to leave it at the existing, but if you're telling me these are free programs, mock trial and UN and.
I can't answer whether those are free, but just having somebody on site, you know, if you want to come into PAC on a weekend, having someone there is, you know, clearly
But
important.
why can't their fees cover that? The fees they charge the participants?
They could. What if we suggested to PAC that they look into, you know, in-town pricing versus outside of town pricing?
Sure.
Because I guess I feel like when I heard about some of their issues around staffing and finding these people, at some point they're just gonna raise prices for everyone. And so I'm either paying it
Through your
Yes.
taxes or.
or
your
through my, yes.
registration.
So,
Sure,
But not everybody participates.
yeah, or you're not gonna go to the programs.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I think it's a good discussion for next week.
okay.
So in total, library, PAC, and seniors, Sean, that's as much as 20K in additional community services expenses. So let's just all kind of keep that, we'll come back to this basket of costs for next week, and we'll move through those decision points. Okay. What else is in here?
Revenues, you want to flip over there?
Yep. Okay. Flip to revenue side, is there anything that we would like to see revised on the revenue side? Since not the 28th, but the 31st. Sean, thanks for this blow by blow. I mean, it looks like just kept plugging away at tightening up those figures. We got the workers' comp number, right? Okay, that's resolved. So fire hydrant is outstanding. But revenue side, anything revenue side that folks would like to discuss?
I'm not suggesting a specific recommendation at this time. We spent a lot of time in committee. I believe that some of our revenue assumptions are conservative. I think some of your revenue assumptions should be conservative as a way of, replenishing reserves and having contingencies, et cetera. But we need to know that as we go in. We need to know that there is, and I sent people an email with some of the areas where I thought there was conservatism, not asking for an adjustment, but just knowing that as we look at this budget with its surpluses or its challenges and its need for additional taxes or not its need for additional taxes, that we read between the lines a little bit and that we know where we stand.
Understood, fair, I think, a fair comment. Okay. So not a revision on revenue, but John, do you want to comment on that? Right, where are the places where you think like, hey, there's a reason to believe things could look better than what we're modeling here?
Yeah, there's a couple of unknowns. Mr. Boonin had talked before about 110 Park. There is a possibility that, for instance, Swarthmore residents may be moving from Swarthmore properties to 110 Park. And if, barring them renting their old properties or doing a $1 sale to a family member, there could be sort of a doubling of real estate transfer tax fees. That's not something I would necessarily expect to move the needle much, unless, dozens of those residents were perhaps doing that. I think the big thing right now is really the reassessment. I mean, if Delco comes back to us and gives us a property assessment that's several percent higher than previous years, we're going to see our real estate tax revenue go up.
Right.
Which would be a good thing.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't really expect more than a $10,000-ish increase of that, taking out the 110 Park. I think we may have been a little bit conservative on the real estate tax, not the transfer tax for 110
Sure.
Park. But, and you pointed out one, I think there'll be, we might use up both of our hands counting the number of Swarthmoreans who move from their quaint Swarthmorean house to into the condos. Well, could be real money, And then, I left out things along the lines of, and we all did, what do they call it, building permits, et cetera. We have
no assumption that Riverview Road, those two rezoned parcels that we're anticipating for next year, we have no assumption of any revenues coming out of that development, no assumption out of anything coming off any of the non-conforming commercial properties, right? So
nothing for the college,
no assumptions. That's right.
All of those
That's right.
sort of things.
Okay.
So these are things that have traditionally we have sort of knowingly underestimated and said, yes, so there is some cushion. So I just want us to know, as we move into this final deliberation and we say, oh, don't we need some more cushion, where the cushion already exists. That's all.
Thank you for that. Okay. Last call for any interior decision points for tonight on the budget. We'll kind of go back to the very top of the list next week,
I think
and we'll say,
on revenues, the thing that's the biggest discussion point is the emergency services tax.
sure.
And
So,
the amount.
and Sean, you felt like, did I have that right, that you thought, kind of live in your cell formulas, if you could be able to kind of call back and forth to us, say, we're going to make this increase, it ties down at this millage rate or not, next week?
Yes,
in the
I
meeting?
can recalculate that.
Okay, okay, very good. All right, so Cindy, I think that gets us through the other side of preliminary budget discussion, but I know you have a couple other tactical
Yes, thank you.
housekeeping pieces for us.
Thank you for leading on that. And so we need to discuss the ordinance on the 2026 tax and fee schedule, but we don't have the numbers to put in that yet.
No, not until we determine a trash hauler or trash recycling, yard waste hauler. Once council determines the bidder and the contract terms, I'll be able to update that fee.
Otherwise, it's just boilerplate, same.
Correct, right now
We
this.
get your name in and 2026 and.
Yes, so right now this is showing the exact same per dwelling trash fee, refuse fee, excuse me, from last year.
Which we know will not stay the same.
It will not, it will go up.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Nope.
Okay.
Not for me, pardon me. Anyone else?
I will note the sanitary sewer fee is updated with the correct fees per the sewer authority.
Oh, good. We will rely on you to get those proper numbers in there. Then discussion on the resolution 1325, 2026 borough fee schedule.
So again, not a lot of, it doesn't look like a lot of changes. Did you get your consult letter on here, the planning and zoning?
Yes,
letter to non-residents?
that's included for a $100 fee
Great.
for a zoning determination or decision letter.
Where's that? I just didn't see it.
So that would
I knew that was my chore to take care of.
Here, let me find it. I put a note here in mine. So under zoning,
Yep.
the fourth item down is now zoning opinion letter, $100 plus any administrative or review costs incurred by the borough.
Ah, where's that? Cool. Okay, great.
And then there's, I think, one other small, two other small comments. I'd suggest raising the rate for hiring an off-duty officer from $95 to $100 to account for the increase in police salary and benefits for the collective bargaining agreement.
Good
And
point.
one item for discussion by council, our fee schedule has something unique. I've never seen this before. It's a green points incentive. So essentially, a permit applicant can have their permit fees lowered by as much as 50% based upon their project's use of renewable energy and other factors. So 50% reduction is a pretty generous
Sure.
reduction, and that is somewhat subsidized by our general fund. Worthy as it may be in terms of incentivizing green projects, I just ask council to consider if they feel 50% is a overly generous figure.
What do people think? I'll say, having gotten up close to this one, green points reduction, I think proportionately is a major incentive to an individual homeowner for their project if they know about the program, and without a tremendous cost or revenue impact to the borough. The place where this 50% deduction really stacks up to big bucks and dollars lost for the borough is on big projects from the college, right? Like the big bioenergy, right, project, that kind of thing. So that's just something to be aware of. And the other thing is the Green Points program itself, both EAC and Planning Commission, I have heard broad consensus that it really could use some updates. So if we were going to give attention to this, I would suggest that it's actually a bigger project than the 50% or not. Really, this is a menu of choice points incentivizing green building and building performance standards, potentially. So I don't have a strong opinion about the 50% or not, but just to give people a little bit of additional context. David, are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I concur that the Green Points Initiative program needs refreshing. That when it was initially adopted, things like switching from electricity to gas was being supported, and now it may be back the other way again. these pendulums swing over time. So I think that it would be worth, not necessarily in this crunch time, reassessing those. And I do also recall Bill saying that he got approximately 0 applications for the Greenpoint program from our residents. And, you know, we did revise the building permits for larger institutional projects last year or the year before.
Last year.
So it may be worth revisiting that, particularly since the college already has a green initiative, and is this just a free ride for them?
Fair
But I think these are all things to be looked at more holistically than just say, oh, okay, we're gonna do it at this time, at this rate. I think we should rather make this a priority to get cleaned up next year.
Okay, so that's just a little more.
I have a couple of thoughts. Sean, you were gonna raise a fee for your time reviewing something about.
That's what we just, that's what I just asked about. That was
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
in the last page.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, the theory behind that is I'll often get calls from.
Okay, we've already done it, it's already in here.
It's proposed in
Right,
here, yes.
good. And I would propose that we raise the parking fees. I don't know when the last time we did that was, but, yeah, for Myers, really, not for merchants.
Parking fees or like fines?
No, the
The permit.
monthly permit
Permit.
amount. They're pretty low, seems to me.
The Myers have reserved parking, if my memory serves me.
It's been a lot of
It is an
students.
increase.
It is already an increase?
Yes, this is an annual permit, right?
It's
I
monthly.
believe so, yeah, these were.
Oh,
says
forgive me,
monthly.
50 per month, okay, right there in front of my face.
I think we raised it like a year
I-
or two ago
I
from
have
40 to
been,
50.
yes, I have been a part of a 40 to 50 conversation, in case that's of comfort to you or not, Cindy.
$50 a month?
Well,
What would you suggest that you think would be?
I'd go up
a more
another
appropriate
10.
amount? Okay. So let's think on that.
And that's not gonna be a big money
Right.
raise.
but free parking isn't free. That's, you know, and, you know, I'd like to hear from the merchants whether they think that our meters are even at the right level, you know, should they get readjusted in order to induce more turnover? You know, it's one of the things a meter is supposed to do, is encourage people to move from where they are after they've shopped.
The meters don't work half the time.
Well, that's another problem.
But I'm open to discussing the fee adjustments, but I think it's, I don't know if it's worth, the squeeze is worth the juice. I think that folks,
For the monthly or for
the monthly, I think folks are not gonna love that we're gonna increase it another $10,
And
10%.
I think we're talking about a couple things interwoven, related to parking costs. So am I overlooking, is this the document that would govern what the meter rate is?
No.
I didn't think so.
And
Okay.
to Jana's point, adjusting the meter rate would probably be more expensive than the revenue it would generate.
Okay.
Cindy
Okay.
is talking about the monthly passes, which, again, a $10 increase, you know, for a couple hundred spots, you know, isn't going to generate a ton of revenue. There's also a third option, which is that our parking violation fines
Sure.
are relatively low. Those were raised recently, in the last couple of years, in speaking with the police chief, basically so that they were an actual financial disincentive to
Yeah.
not park illegally. But those could also generate, you know, more revenue and shift costs from, you know, residents to those who violate parking restrictions.
I'm good with that.
Fair. I mean, there's this whole rack under police right, which is all the parking enforcement. Just for the sake of conversation, right? Imagine all these that are indexed at $20, at $25, right? That kind of thing.
We talked about this in public safety a couple months ago, didn't we? About the fines. Remember,
I know that a year ago was when they made.
was it a year?
Yeah, about 100% increase, and so the meter fines went from $5 to $10.
Oh, all right, so time is,
And then we had the prohibited parking went from 15 to 50, but that was about a year ago.
Okay, thanks for that, Ray. So let's just put a pin in it for now, but we've identified some opportunities under parking and police, but otherwise we are holding, it looks like we're planning to hold pretty close to last year's fee schedule. So if you have a bright idea, next week will be your last shot. Sound good? Okay. What else you got for us, Cindy?
One last thing, I'd like to move that the borough retain Transcend Finance for budget and financial consulting services in an amount not to exceed $11,500. Do I have a second?
second.
Okay, so everybody up here understands that this is 2025 planning activities and assessment, preparing for our software transition, and also some staff planning for next year. Sean, anything else you want to give us on this? This is a vendor that you vouch for, that you think can help us really be working from good tools on an
Yeah, I
ongoing
would
basis.
just add that the timing is very good for this because of two specific reasons. One, the borough's current finance software, the company was purchased by another company who has told us that at some point in 2026, we're going to be getting a new software. We don't know anything about how well it works for us or our staff. So it's a good time to consider what other options are out there. Also, we may have a member of our staff who is retiring at some point next year, in which case Transcend Finance can get a ahead of time look at our financial procedures and be there for, potentially an interim staffing of that role. If it takes us, longer than we hope for to identify a new finance person. I can tell you that in terms of the hiring market for municipal finance directors, it is tough out there. It's good if you're a municipal finance director. It's not so good if you were a borough or township trying to find a finance director.
Small population.
Yes.
Okay, rare breed.
And I would hope that this assessment would look at some of our protocols. I know that we constantly stub our toes, if you will, when we say, how much money do we have at any particular point in time, and what's it committed to? Do we have a good understanding of what our cash reserve is and where it stands in relationship to where it needs to be to get us through the year? So there's some variance analysis, there's some
Forecasting, reforecasting.
forecasting and
tools.
reforecasting, and where things go. Should money be in our budget? Something we had vigorous discussions on for grants matching, or should that be coming out of a pot that we have already designated as our grant pot that we've funded? Things like that, I think, would be very helpful to all of us moving forward.
Okay, very good.
Take your vote.
So,
questions?
very good. Anything else on that? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Cindy, anything else, and will there be a finance committee meeting this month?
That's what I was gonna say, next meeting is November 24th, unless we've already passed the
Right,
budget, which
unless-
I don't know that we will.
Understood,
So, yeah.
understood. Okay, so tentatively, the 24th. Thanks so much. Hi, Jana.
Hi, okay, general government, we did not have a meeting last month. We will have another merchant what we're calling like a merchant monthly meeting, but Sean, it was supposed to be this Wednesday, the first Wednesday of every month, but it sounds like now there's a conflict, so it'll be,
Yeah, the 12th.
is that like going forward or just this month?
That's just this month. I apologize, I had a conflict with the senior center.
They're more important.
They got here first. So yeah, I have it on my calendar for noon on the 12th.
Okay, could you send an email out to the merchants?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, yes.
I think Shannon said, yeah, that was good. Yeah, cool, thank you.
Sounds good.
And then I'd like to make a motion to approve the October 1st, 2025 walking tour meeting minutes, because that was an official meeting since we had more than a quorum there.
Do we have a quorum of those who attended? I think we had 4. I know 2 of you were here. Cindy, were you with that?
Cindy was here. as well.
Okay, perfect.
Great.
So moved.
So the 3 of you were present, the 3 of you can approve those
Right.
minutes. Okay, so that's a motion and a second?
Yes.
Okay, we can chart that as a Jana to David on your baseball score sheet there, Sean. Okay, and any further discussion on those minutes? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 3-0 on that one. Very good. What else you got?
And then over to human relations, or can we?
Okay,
jump to
let's
that?
let's do this letter of support, which Jana, you got docketed to you, but really this is Sean and Bob in support of Nether Providence Township, support for a trail improvement. So did everyone get a chance to look at this simple letter? It says, we would love to help Nether Providence get funds for their bike trails. So any objections to helping them make a strong grant application for that purpose?
Understand it ends in Swarthmore Borough, that's why they need your.
Sure, sure. So this is Lieber's Medley Trail, walking trail, biking trail along Plush Mill Roads and across Crum Creek, where there's a narrow bridge. Crossing Plush Mill Roads into Crum Woods Trail. This is an area, folks might know, Nether Providence has made a lot of enhancements to their trails. So this is the next leg that they're looking for PennDOT Transportation Alternatives set aside money to continue to enhance that trail program. So, as far as I'm concerned, more power to them. Sounds awesome. Can't wait to go walk on the trail. They're really nice, the ones that they've put in recently.
I just add that this is a letter of support for the application, so they still have to submit and hopefully be approved, but yes, it sounds like that.
So moved.
Okay, thanks much. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, David, Janet, thanks for more. Any other comments or questions on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. So Jana, you're first out of the gate on volunteer applications.
Yes.
And you're the beginning of a wave of please come and join the fun in appointed positions. So what you got for HRC?
Yes, and thank you, Sean, because I know in your newsletter you mentioned that there were multiple vacancies either now or on their way. So we now have a vacancy on the HRC. And I want to thank Claire Oakes for her tenure on HRC. But she'll be rolling off, so there's only 4 folks on that board, and so they're looking to add 1 more. So we are looking for applicants.
Great. So HRC is alongside our Environmental Advisory Commission, our Planning Commission, our Zoning Hearing Board, anyone I may be forgetting, our Pension Board, right? There are a whole host of appointed positions that it's a January 1 cycle turnover where we may have openings now or unexpectedly. Sean, I saw in the Borough newsletter that you indicated November 24th deadline. So if folks are interested, please submit a letter of interest or a resume to Sean over email or stop by the Borough office for any of those appointed positions. They're volunteer positions. They are fulfilling and challenging, and more is more. So thanks for having your act together to get us started with that. There'll be more on that in December and January.
That's it.
Okay, any meetings upcoming for November?
No meetings, thank you.
All right, well then planning and zoning is next. So, so the committee report for the planning and zoning committee, I'll share tonight, and then 1 matter for council discussion. So in October, planning commission met Wednesday, October 15th. they discussed, they continue to discuss a proposed ordinance regulating sensitive business uses, so that's vape shops and other businesses with age-restricted products. And they're going to continue working on that topic during their next meeting, which is scheduled for November 19th. The next night, Planning and Zoning Committee met. That was October 16th. We heard 2 proposal presentations. The first was from the Centennial Foundation, offering to fund a reimagining of the Swarthmore Borough Memorial at Park and Dartmouth Avenues. And they're offering to do that at no cost to the borough in time for the 2026 Memorial Day and the 250th anniversary of the United States. So Doug Heinsberger, our colleague from Planning Commission, architect and construction manager, along with Sharon Mester on behalf of Centennial Foundation, offered a really beautiful design and construction plan to make that a much more active, open, safe, inviting seating area and ongoing memorial to not just the fatalities of past foreign wars that are reflected now, but any Swarthmoreans who have served in historical armed conflicts. So I know that I shared those materials with everybody up here, and so I want to get us into that conversation a little bit more detail. But before I do that, just to give the end of the digest from last month, the second presentation in Planning and Zoning Committee was detailed information about traffic and parking considerations related to the Cunningham Park proposal from Swarthmore College. Both those presentations, the Veterans Memorial and the Cunningham Park presentation, will be repeated at the November 19th Planning Commission. So if there are any members of the public who would like to learn more about either of those initiatives, November 19th Planning Commission meeting is an opportunity to do that. Okay. So that's what we were up to last month. And for discussion tonight, the committee voted to recommend to council to approve the Veterans Memorial Project. And Doug and Sharon are on hand tonight to answer any questions that there might be, but I hope folks were able to review the project renderings and the due diligence that Bob and Sean helped support myself and Doug to be working through. So let me just step back for a moment. What questions or reactions and folks think it looked, any of those kinds of things?
Sorry, not to go off on a tangent. I just had a quick question about the meeting minutes. Can I?
Please.
Okay. The sensitive uses. So does that mean that they wouldn't get back to us we wouldn't talk about that until the December meeting, and so we wouldn't even be able to vote on anything?
So optimistically, and Doug, please feel empowered to chime in if this is not your take. Optimistically, there could be a recommended text. That's the goal for the November meeting, in which case we would have that for our December, let me just think it through aloud. We would have that for our December meeting. It wouldn't be to adopt, it would be to advertise, because this would be, we're anticipating this would be rather a new text compared to what we sent them as a starting point. So a vote to advertise is still possible for December.
And you'd have to submit what you're proposing to be the final.
Back to ourselves,
To the county
right,
planning commission.
as the Borough Planning Commission.
So you're
County
looking
Planning Commission.
at a 30-day period there. So you're looking at January.
Or February,
Yeah.
if the dates don't play nice with you.
I hope they get us something.
Okay.
So noted.
Okay. Thank you for that. Forgive me.
Sorry.
For stepping past that. I was just eager to get to the
Yes,
nice fun part. Okay. So questions or reactions? What did folks think of the design? I mean, I just really love the opportunity for this to be an open seating area and attractive hardscaping and planting year round. Sharon, do you want to come and make yourself available?
Since we were here at the last meeting, we had said we'd have a rendering.
Great.
So, and I know
Give
David
us what
had
you got.
asked about that. So wait, it has to be those over there.
Maybe Doug would even be willing to be a Vanna White and,
So,
show
four
folks
copies too.
There are 4 copies of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
So, oh,
Thank you.
I'm not sure if I'm,
You must think I tried to talk to everyone. Doug, you hold it. So, and can you guys see it? So basically, we're keeping the original memorial, and then we're taking down the fence, you know, the dilapidated fence around it, and all the old pavers, and there's going to be this circular blue stone with granite edging, and then there's going to be granite benches on either side, new flagpole in the back, and then there's access to it from 3 different ways. This one is ADA accessible right here, and then 2 over here and over here. So it makes it a space where people can sit and reflect. It makes it accessible for ceremonies. I do want to say that this planting material, this is not what the Hort Society will do. This was just put in here, and we've been working with Andrew, and I'm sure he'll design something very special.
Sure. Sharon, thanks for that quick recap.
And-
Okay, so
and
now
thank you
what do we think?
for-
Right, just on kind of aesthetics and functionality, my first stop was to Brian Tipping, who's our Director of Public Works, to ask, Brian, what do you think? Do we think we can maintain this well? Do we think that this is a design that's compatible with the ongoing maintenance that the borough would be responsible for? Do you have any questions for Doug, who designed and would lead the build on this project? And Brian said, 3 thumbs up, this looks awesome, it looks like an improvement on safety and maintenance. And so Sean and Bob each advised, and did you hear back from the insurance carrier? Just really wanted to make sure, is there anything that we need to be thinking through or indicating to Doug that I might not know of as a generalist? Or can we just say, yes, sounds great, we would love to see this enhancement?
I think considering, which is on, considering that right now it's probably more of a liability because the walkways are crooked, doesn't meet ADA, really.
And risk impalement if you get too close.
Fence is dangerous, yes.
Okay.
You have a child of that age, yeah, I
No,
remember.
yeah. Well, I think of it more during the ceremonies with the seniors and little ones who are tiptoeing through the flagstones.
I was tap dancing to give you time to get the official response.
I have not seen back, but I agree 100%. And yeah, I believe we have our annual insurance like inspection, for lack of a better term, their walkthrough. So we'll be sure to walk through there. I'm sure what is proposed is more palatable than what exists now.
Okay. And Bob, any chores or to-dos on the
So
council
the
side?
one thing I just want to kind of be clear on, this is going to be paid for solely by the Centennial Foundation money. If it were to be a combination of borough money and Centennial Foundation money, it would have to be advertised for bids and be subject to prevailing wage. So it's got to be all Centennial Foundation money on the way it's programmed.
And Sharon does, heard loud and clear?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay, very good. And understanding the rationale why, right, that was
Yes,
changed.
yes.
Scar, tilt your microphone up a little bit so I can hear you better.
All better?
Better.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
And is it appropriate for me to just say that I don't have a conflict of interest because those architectural services have all been volunteer?
Correct. And you stand, the conflict of interest pieces, thank you for raising it just as a point of education. The conflict of interest is a much more limited function than I would have thought before I encountered it here. The material conflict, and I'll look to you all to say or no, is really about, do you stand as an elected official to make money off your vote?
You or your family. Or your family.
Or your family, very good. Good illustration here. And unless the answer is yes, it is very important to have people vote so we can get business done. So we want to be judicious about ever considering activating that conflict of interest, kind of stand back. Go.
I'd like to thank Sharon and Doug for producing this rendering that I requested. It's beautiful. It goes so far to help so many, other than schematics and things, which were very useful as well. And it just will give that part of our town, which is really a center part of our whole community,
Yeah.
such a beautiful facelift. And will really recognize a whole additional set of dedicated soldiers, using that generically,
Sure.
military, who have served from Swarthmore through their QR codes, etc. So I thank them from many different aspects. Thank you.
Great. And so again, just to plug one more time, Sharon, I really enjoyed the history lesson that was embedded in the project proposal and committee, because I learned some things about the history of our community I didn't know, and I was grateful for that. So again, rerun of this program on November 19th. So next week, we're looking for the council decision that approves or disapproves this proposal moving forward. And Doug is asking for our guidance at this time because he wants sufficient material purchase lead time so that we can be confident that the construction is completed in advance of Memorial Day next year. Okay. So anything else on this topic for tonight? Okay, Doug, Sharon, continue to thanks for your leadership and vision on this project. Can the rendering stay here?
Yes.
Maybe Sean and Elise could stick it in the window or help us otherwise kind of get excited about it? Great. Okay, thanks very, very much for that. Okay, so all right, I think last up on planning and zoning then is upcoming during the month of November. So again, one last time, Planning Commission will meet Wednesday, November 19th. They'll be seeing a detailed presentation about Cunningham Park, this Veterans Memorial proposal, and hopefully concluding their deliberation on the sensitive business uses ordinance. The next night, Thursday, November 20th, Planning and Zoning Committee will meet, and that will be for a detailed review of the ordinance changes requested by the college associated with Cunningham Park. Those have been posted to the Cunningham Park information tab on the borough website for folks who really want to deep dive on that, and circulated to full council as well. Okay. So that's Thursday the 20th. And that's it for planning and zoning for tonight. Okay, so that brings us around. Jan, back to you for public safety. If you could pinch it, please.
Yep, pinch it for Kristen. On the police side of things, well, we did meet last month. For police, as noted in the Swarthmore last week, just remind folks to lock their doors, even during the daytime, as the chief mentioned, as we're still having car break-ins and a rash of them, I think, a week or two ago. The department is still working towards accreditation, and it's going smoothly, and as we already have a well-functioning department already. And third, on police, the committee unanimously supports increasing the chief's salary to be in line with his peers in 1 year versus 2. On the fire end of things, we are working with a consultant to finalize the report on consolidation with Nether. This should be ready in the coming weeks. I don't know if Mayor Murray has anything to add, but once it's complete, we'll share it in joint meeting with Nether and our fire chiefs, and then to full council and the public. And then finally on the authority, I'm going to kick that over to Sean, hopefully, because he can report on your meeting with DCED last week.
Yes, we had a very productive meeting with the peer review specialist and the partnering communities. Again, just some of the highlights, and let me pull up Kristen's email. So Upper Providence Township and media have appointed members to the Authority Task Force, so we now stand at 6 potential partnering communities. The task force has reviewed 2 proposals from attorneys to serve as solicitor for the authority. It suggested that the attorney engage with municipalities and that a cost share formula based on population be proposed, so that is in the works. Bob also suggested the solicitor engage with Swarthmore as we provide ambulance services to the majority of the members. So all that in the works. There is a MOU that will be discussed next week outlining the financial cost between the populations. So we expect to come back with a request for a not to exceed financial figure somewhere between 35 and 47,000 split between those 6 communities, again based on population. Upfront payments will be required at some point. That will be outlined in the MOU. But again, this is just the pay structure being discussed currently.
Thanks for that.
On the agenda, it says discussion of 2026 borough spray contract.
This is your stray animals. When we need to catch the dog or cat or other.
And maintain the cat or dog. Or
That's right, and find them their next destination. So, Sean, any material changes to the service from this year to next year? If you know.
Yeah, minor
Okay,
cost
if you say.
Yeah, I'll defer to Ray if I miss anything material here, but the increases are nominal. The monthly increase will be up by $6 and a $2 increase per day for the boarding of the stray. Monthly fees will be at $150. Daily boarding fees currently at $50, so those will be going up $6 and $2 respectively. The other thing I just mentioned here is that the borough does not have any contract with kill shelters. If that's I imagine it is a concern for folks. So the potential cost increase here is that a influx of stray animals collected would mean potentially more boarding fees.
Sure.
So if there are any interested residents who would want to serve as a foster home for any of these animals, if you would reach out to myself or the chief, we'd love to keep you on our list, on our call list to keep those costs down.
I like that. Okay, well, resourceful mutual aid. And, right, any changes or trends in utilization or anything that this group needs to know about? Or would you be pleased to see a continuity of the structure for next year?
No, the way the MOU is really just a copy and paste from what it's been for years.
Great, and it's still meeting our needs well.
Yeah, and just to clarify, it is not cats. We do
Forgive
not
me.
do stray cats. It's just canines. And it has worked, and we have only had, to Sean's point, we've only had a couple canines that we've had a difficult time placing. We did end up placing them, but, as that MOU is set up, we start reaching out to we have about 15 rescues that we have on email speed dial that we start. And Jill can actually speak to it too, because she's been very helpful in us locating, owners. And it only happens a couple of times, but one dog we end up keeping for, long amount,
Sure.
extended
Sure.
amount of time starts to
Okay.
add up. But
Okay.
the way that they've been great with us compared to some other places.
Okay, thanks for that. So, we will seek to take action on that contract next week.
Okay, great, thank you. Some say that Swarthmoreans love animals more than people.
Well, there you go.
I don't know if we are meeting on the 18th. I would assume so, unless we tell you otherwise.
Okay.
That's it, thank you.
Thanks for that, Jana. David, on behalf of Jared and the Public Works Committee.
Yeah, first, just a little bit of the report before we get to the items on the agenda. One of the things that Public Works is working on is gathering a census of our open spaces and parks, their status, their uses, etc., and something that Jared's been pushing forward, so worth mentioning. Also on the agenda is a discussion of the Little Chrome Creek site prep RFP. My understanding is that the RFP was issued through
Pended.
NMID, and we just Oh, and we have responses? Or-
We do. So Panoni, sorry, this was just sent literally today. The award, the low bidder for the award was Premier Concrete of Broomall, PA, with a total base bid of $68,450. Panoni reports that they've worked with this bidder in the past, find their work to be satisfactory, and recommends that Swarthmore Borough award the contract to Premier Concrete for the previously stated amount of $68,450.
And how's that fit into the budget that we had for site preparation?
That's good.
Well, I will double check, but their bid is low by a significant amount here. So I'd like to think it's good if you compare it to the other three bidders.
No, I just want to know how it compared to what we had budgeted for site preparation for the project.
So if you could just make a note of that, Sean, if you don't have it in front of
We
you.
can do that offline.
Yeah.
And make sure we know it
Good.
before we vote on.
Good,
Right,
that's helpful.
next week.
And Sean, could you, so the action for next week is awarding the bid.
Yes.
So let's make sure that we have it, have that agenda, that we're not talking about the RFP anymore, we're talking about the award. And honestly, Sean, I think you do have that in the draft for the 10th, that you and I were workshopping, but I'm not 100% confident on that.
I will
So,
check.
yeah, kind of just take that look as well. Okay, that's great, how exciting.
Okay.
Okay.
The next two items are related to one another. We issued 2 RFPs this year, one for what we call trash and one which we call for organic waste. Trash includes hauling, okay, of trash, recycling, bulk items, and yard waste. All right? And then the organic waste had 2 potential components, food scraps and yard waste. And we stated in the RFP for the big trash contract, if you will, that we asked them to list their costs separately because we might want to pull out yard waste because there was a possibility that another vendor would be awarded it. Real briefly, and you've all seen the information, we got 3 bids for trash, 2 for organic waste, and they've gone through the Public Works Committee for assessment. B&L is our recommendation for those 4 components. I just call it trash for simplicity. Its costs are lower than, well, we got, as I said, we got 3. One was from Z360, also known in its other life as Easy Compost, if you will, or the green buckets. They didn't seem ready for prime time at this time, so we declined to accept their bid, which would have been lower. Maybe in the future, we just don't know, not now. The bids are structured so that they give us 3 one-year bids. We're really accepting the first-year bid and have the option to pick up the second and the third years. B&L was lower than its competitor in year 1 and 2, and when we looked at all 3 years together, was slightly higher. B&L listed as a subcomponent the yard waste, so it would allow us the flexibility in the future of moving away from our current paradigm and having somebody else fill up the yard waste. Taking all that into consideration, and with discussion with council, the Public Works Committee will be recommending that we give the trash or the solid waste program contract to B&L. And let me stop there for a second and ask if anybody has any questions, comments, etc.
So
I
trash. check.
agree that it should go to B&L if we did a 1 year, but I wanted to reserve assurance, or be assured that we weren't out of line with awarding it for all 4 years, because even in year 2, it's a little bit more.
There's no advantage to awarding more than a 1-year contract. They're locked in.
So it's another way of asking your question. So Bob, this time next year, if we didn't want to use the B&L year 2, we could bid all over
Yep.
again.
Mhm.
Does that answer your question in a different way, Cindy? Right, so we're not obligating ourselves to the year 2 or year 3 figure.
But we are locking them in.
Right, so they're locked in, they're not.
They're obligated to provide the service to us unless we
Mhm.
decline to
Even
continue
though
with
they're
them.
more, we could do a year 2, even though they're more expensive than
Well,
Casella.
what you're awarding now is year 1, and they're the cheapest on year 1.
Yes,
And if the next years are not foreseeable, you may or may not, they may or may not get additional year contracts,
correct,
right?
yeah.
So I'm totally comfortable with your legal ability to award this to B&L for 1 year.
And not have to rebid it.
No.
Okay, I don't understand it, but I'm not the lawyer.
Okay. And, you know, Cindy's right that in year 2, I believe the competitive bid was slightly lower than B&L, but years 1 and 2 combined, B&L was still less. So yeah, there are a lot of moving parts here, and I think it's something that we need to consider as we move into next year, what we want to do as far as service.
Yeah, I'm good.
Good.
So we're thinking B&L for trash, B&L for recycling.
B&L for trash, recycling,
Bulk.
bulk
Yard
items,
waste and bulk.
and yard waste, right?
Okay.
Okay, so the big 4.
So yard waste and organics, I know I'm getting just a little bit ahead,
Right.
but just to ask in a different way, yard waste and food scraps are not combined.
Not
At,
yet.
at this point, we have decided not to accept
Okay.
the combination of yard waste and food scraps, but to recommend to full council that we start a borough-wide curbside pickup program for food scraps. That's the recommendation of Public Works. It's also the recommendation that came out of EAC this past week. And I want to thank EAC for all their work in helping us get RFPs together and reviewing the RFPs and even weighing in this process. This is a incremental next step for us to meet our zero waste commitment and getting the right trash into the right stream.
Sure. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Jennifer and others. I have a couple questions about the implementation on food scraps, but anyone else? Trash, recycling, yard waste. Are we good on that point?
Right.
Okay. Cindy, anything else on that topic? That
No,
part?
I thought we had moved to food
Okay,
scraps.
so now, food scraps, yes. Okay, so I just have a few factual questions, if
Sure.
I could. So are these 2 bids that Sean, you hopefully summarized as the bid responses, are these still the costs that we have to choose from for food
Yes.
scraps only? Okay. And then, is there a recommendation from the committee on weekly versus bi-weekly?
It's bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly, okay. And then this commercial and compost trainings, we are saying yes to that too? Or, I mean, those are kind of nominal costs.
Yes,
But I don't really know what that is.
they will work, and the EAC has said they will work with whomever we, say they should work with on education and training.
And so, am I correct that for residents, food scrap collection is encouraged but not required for personal residences. I don't know what the enforcement would look like, especially
Right.
if you're one unrequired. So I'm gonna care, whether people are comfortable with the term, I'm gonna say it's encouraged. But the reason I'm asking that question is because what about food-based businesses? Right? Our business community is required to recycle. So I think not a suggestion that I would make for 2026 to say participating in the food scraps program is required, but maybe other people disagree with me. Is it encouraged or is it required? Because when I think about food disposal at scale, I'm thinking about that in a commercial setting as well as in a residential setting. So
This would.
just a first draft thought.
Right,
to offer to folks.
at this time, it only applies, and I'll defer to our borough manager, but the food scrap program only applies to residential properties.
So we're not offering this service to businesses.
Bids were collected for commercial properties, and we've gotten responses from the bidders for that service.
Sorry.
Is that
Right.
what this commercial per
Yes.
line, what does that represent? Because it's a lower figure relative to the rest of.
It's per pickup or per month or?
So
per
this
something?
is, yeah, I think it's per collection.
Per collection would make sense based upon the other numbers.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so that at least sounds like a point of education and messaging, that is a service available to commercial operators. Sean, there's a little bit of recent history about how we've improved our service to increase recycling out of businesses, particularly glass recycling. So I think there's a recent analog to say, hey, great news, we have this service available to you. Here's how to take advantage of it. Here's the cost sharing, any of that. I think Jana might be of interest in the merchant meeting upcoming.
Well, do we know what volume they're willing to collect for $120 from a commercial?
I'd have to look at the bid specifications and see if there's any maximum. I don't recall offhand.
Right, because you could see, I have no idea what the compost current practice is, but
Yeah.
maybe they have quite a bit.
Yeah, the residential is a 5-gallon bucket. It would need to be more, obviously.
This may be per bucket per week or per pickup, I don't know, but Scott could clarify that with the phone.
I'd like to
Sure.
go back to the residential though. I was a dissenting vote on this. It's fairly expensive for a 5-gallon bucket every 2 weeks. I compost at home. I know that my volume is much greater, just in eggs, coffee, and banana peels, it just adds up. I don't think this guarantees that the right stuff gets in the right stream. And I think this year where we have other costs that we're adding to our residents' plates, it's not the year to do it.
Sure, okay. So even at the bi-weekly service option that is less expensive than the weekly service, you would say strike this for this year, table it until future year. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for getting on board with that. Others?
And,
So it's useful next week that we have these as severable decision points,
Right.
right? We'll be able to talk about solid waste and then we'll talk about food scraps separately.
right.
Okay.
Meeting your convictions often cost you some money, $149,000 comes down to, we said, about $100 per household served, I believe.
Annual.
What?
Annual.
Annually. So what's that, $8.50 a month? That's a lot less than people pay who pay for the green buckets right now. I pay for a green bucket right now, just full disclosure. And we don't know what the penetration will be. It's my understanding that buckets will be offered and or provided to every resident. Whether they use it, it's for the expected purpose is yet to be seen, and something that I believe that we should have the vendor track and give us some sort of performance report out of anything that we do.
Scarlett, I can answer your question as well for commercial properties. So the 120 per business annually assumes bi-weekly collection, also with 1 5-gallon bucket.
Okay.
However, additional buckets are available from the contractor and would be collected at the same intervals.
Sure.
Those businesses would just have to buy those additional buckets.
Okay, okay. And I'm just anecdotally aware that some of our food-based businesses already have their own sustainable practices, right? I mean, if you're filling up your home bucket with coffee grounds, right? You know, Hobbs has a really much more large-scale beneficial use of their coffee grounds, right? But to be able to offer the choice point, I think, is something that we want to weigh in our assessment on this issue. Does this add value to our business operators? Right? Okay, so thank you for that. Okay, very good. Anything else then that helps us be informed to make a decision on food scraps or on solid waste next week? All right, then David, anything else you've got for us for tonight?
I do not have anything else. I'll defer to Jared when he returns for scheduling issues.
Okay, sounds good. Hello, Mayor's people. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. I have nothing to report.
Okay, thanks very much.
We can move into executive as soon as you're ready.
So, you got it. Sean and Bob, I'm coming your way, then we'll have public comment one more time if we need.
Yeah, a couple of things. There is a bin out in the lobby for Senator Kearney's office is doing a diaper drive. So if anybody is interested, again, any size diaper, they didn't express any preference for one size over the other. Those will be collected, I believe, weekly for the next 3 or 4 weeks here. Thank you to everybody who contributed information for the newsletter. The newsletter was published earlier today, sent out to our email list and published on the website. If you did not get that email but you'd like to be on the list, please email me, manager@swarthmorepa.org, and we'll get you added. And finally, on behalf of the Public Works Department, leaf season has begun. You probably noticed the trucks out there. As you put your leaves out curbside, please note to remove any sticks or rocks. That will help keep the crews safe and the machines running so that we can continue to pick up all those leaves. That's all.
Leaf season is here. Okay, with that, this is our second and final public comment for the evening. If there's anyone who'd like to make a public comment, what are you? Going once? Going twice. Okay, next chance is same bad time, same bad channel next week. Okay. So hearing no public comment, we'll close the public comment period, and I'm seeking a motion for adjournment into executive session.
So moved.
Thank you, Jana. And let's call it a night. Thanks so much, everybody.